Levites. There's a difference between the priest and the Levi. Levites were secondary. Thank you, Dan.
Start over now.
I'm not. That's too bad. Anyway, the Levites were there. They were the musicians in the time of the temples. But they also helped the individuals. And it's so interesting that you mentioned it, because the man that I'm going to bury today, his name was David Halevi. So Levites and Kohens keep their heritage extremely important. So Kohen, you can identify immediately a Kohen by some of the last names. What will be the last name? Kohen, or Kahan, or there were few, depends if you're a Kohen from a Sephardic heritage. So you have Ashkenazi Kohens and Sephardic Kohens. Oh, nice. A little bit of entertainment. Now I can start again from the beginning. So there are different groups. The Levites are only known if they decided to continue keeping the name. So for example, we opened the marriage contract of the man that died because we wanted to check his Hebrew name. So in every marriage contract in Judaism, the Hebrew name of the individual, if the individual is Jewish, is written. And so his name is David Halevi. So Halevi was very important to keep for this family. And so I'm going to talk a little bit today about the Levites and their role to help the way they attach themselves to the Israelites. I don't know how we got there, but it's fine. Yeah, who cares? So what are the questions about the revelation on Mount Sinai that you always wanted to ask? Yes?
Did God consider the mind of the tribe so fickle that he needed just one leader to reveal himself to?
Oh my God, if she decided to reveal herself to more than one person, there'll be no Judaism. I'm serious. I can see that. By the way, there are different segments of the Jewish people in the time of the Second Temple, and they disagree. They had Moses, but they disagree about the interpretation. And even today, we have different groups in Judaism. So I'm a liberal progressive rabbi, and the rabbi that is at Beth Israel, I study with him, we shake hands, but he will still not see me as the authentic chain of transmission all the way from Moses. So the way Orthodox rabbi looks at himself, and it's only himself, there are no women. That will change one day, I'm sure, like everything else. And so he sees himself as one of the people standing on the chain all the way from Mount Sinai to Omaha, Nebraska, 2016. There is a Lubavitcher rabbi in town next to the elementary school, next to Beveridge, the Chabad. It took him 10 years to send me envelopes with the title rabbi. Like mail, he will not put the word rabbi in front of my name. It's okay. I still open the mail and give him donations. So, one prophet, one messenger. I think most of the religions are pretty happy with one. I think the confusion gets when you have more than one. Look at the Shiites and the Sunni. Although they claim Muhammad is their prophet, still who is more related to him will determine the agony between those two groups. What else? Yes?
Okay, I've always wondered, if I were Moses and I had these tablets that were so precious that God had given only to me with the name, in his own writing, so to speak, and I get so angry that I smash them, that doesn't make sense.
Well, he had some anger issues. I'm so happy I wasn't there. No, I mean, he looked carefully at his biography through the books. I mean, he was like a match, kindled constantly. You blame him?
Well, yeah.
Look at his material that he needed to work with. Yeah, but he went back and wrote a second tablet. So I think totally I understand the anger. Coming down with Joshua from the top of the mountain, Joshua did not go all the way to the top. He was waiting for him. Coming down the mountain and seeing the orgy on the bottom of the mountain of about a few thousand people who are dancing in front or around the golden calf, that can irritate everyone. We get irritated from what our children or grandchildren are doing for the little thing. Are you kidding? This was something that really defaced all the work that he was doing up there. What else? What about the question, why did the Jews ended up with this burden? Did you ever ask, how come the Jews got the Torah or the covenant? That's an interesting question. You'll see today in the material that God, as an excellent salesperson, went from nation to nation, and they asked him what's there, and when God told them what's there, they said, no, we don't want to do it. So you'll see how this works. So let's start with the first question. I'll go back to the question that I was asked a little bit later. 25. Who would like to read number 25? Please. You guys do such a good job in reading.
Rabbi Isaac said, Israel were worthy. That sounds whatever.
It's a translation, remember?
I know.
Okay,
It's an English major here. Come on.
great. You should not read the text.
Okay.
Go on.
Israel were worthy of receiving the Torah immediately upon leaving Egypt. But the Holy One said, because of their servitude in clay and bricks, my children's look of good health has not yet come back, and therefore they cannot receive the Torah at once. God's delay in giving the Torah may be illustrated by the parable of a king's son who had just got up from his sickbed. His tutor said, let your son go back to school. The king replied, my son's look of good health has not yet come back. Yet you say, let him go back to school. Let my son be indulged for 2 or 3 months with good food and drink so that he may fully recover. Then he can go back to school.
That's exactly how long it took to get to Mount Sinai, 3 months. Go on.
Likewise, the Holy One said, my children's look of good health has not yet come back. They have just been released from slaving with clay and bricks. Shall I now give them the Torah? Let my children be indulged for 2 or 3 months with the manna, with the waters of the well, with the quail. Then I will give them the Torah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically what you said. I mean, they were not ready yet. They were not ready. I needed to send them to a 5-star hotel for a while. Which, by the way, they just left Egypt and they already start complaining. I mean, part of the complaints, this explains also why there are so many battles in the desert. They were just not ready. That's why there was a need to wait for the whole generation to die, except 2. Who are the 2 people that survived the generation?
Joshua and Caleb.
Okay.
Beautiful. Joshua and Caleb. Those are the 2 people, the true spies that came back with similar reports like the 10 spies, but they were upbeat about their report. We can do it. And so they get special reward for their strong belief in what one can do in conquering the new land. Okay, so this is one of them. Let's look at 28. So they answer the question of why they waited 3 months. Who would like to read 28?
As a lily among thorns, Song of Solomon, I presume.
You guys all read the Song of Songs, I hope. Please do me a favor, stop buying Hallmark cards and start just copying the verses of Song of Songs. Especially if you have a wife or a husband or someone that you want to write something original. Just copy the book. It's beautiful and it's not manufactured. It's not done by someone sitting in a room and writing those kind of stupid things. Song of Songs, look at this verse. As a lily among the thorns. Continue.
Rabbi
Azariah, or whatever.
Citing Rabbi Judah, son of Rabbi Simon, illustrated the verse by the parable of a king who had an orchard planted with a row of fig trees, a row of grapevines, a row of pomegranate trees, and a row of apple trees. The king turned this orchard over to a keeper and went away. After a while, the king came back and looked into the orchard to see how it had done, and found it overgrown with thorns and thistles. He summoned woodcutters to raise it, but as he looked again at the thorns, he noticed among them a rose-colored lily. He took hold of it and breathed in its fragrance, and his spirit was calmed. Then the king said, because of this lily, let the entire orchard be spared.
Is the parable clear? Again, I'm giving you the way they used to talk in those days. With parables. And again, every time there's a king, who are we talking about? God and the Son. Well, the Son, in this case, in Jewish writing, is always the people of Israel. That's the Son. In other religions, is whatever fits for the Son to be the Son. So that's constantly the same model. Okay, so now comes the explanation. Likewise,
the whole world, all of it, was created only for the sake of the Torah. But after 26 generations, when the Holy One looked closely at his world to ascertain what it had done, he found it muddy water within muddy water. The generation of Enosh, water within water. The generation of the flood, water within water. The generation of the dispersion of mankind, water within water. He summoned destroyers to raise the world, but then he noticed there a rose-colored lily, Israel. He took hold of it and breathed in its fragrance. He gave Israel the 10 Commandments. When he heard their response, we will do and we will hearken, Exodus 24, his spirit was calmed. The Holy One then said, because of a lily, an orchard was spared. Because of Torah and of Israel, let the world be spared.
so that's how the Torah is viewed in Jewish tradition. I mean, actually the Torah was the blueprint that God read carefully before God created God's world. The Torah was there before, so there is a definitely understanding in Jewish text that the Torah was already there. And God just opened the pages of the Torah, and that's how he created the world. So, why is this, what this piece teaches us, this Midrash teaches us? What it teaches us about God, and what it teaches us about the people of Israel. What kind of a God appears?
God is merciful.
Merciful, compassionate. You know, the world, doing...
Post-election.
Exactly. You took it from my mouth. So people got angry at me that the day after the election, I said, enough mourning, move on already. I mean, okay, so I allow some people to continue shrine and crying. So we have people, it was a shock, but I mean, what are we doing now? So it looked so bad, but one can find lilies and roses even in the midst of the chaos. Even in the midst of this surprise that we got, some of us predicted it, some of us are still not coping with this. But there are so many things around us that are worthwhile saving and rejoicing. And there was such a beautiful sky the day after the elections. You go out, and I put both pictures of my grandchildren, because you look at them, and how can you be depressed? So, I mean, those are the kind of things that we need to find. If God is searching for the rose, for the lily, so are we. We need to work in order to find what are the lessons, what is the homework that we need to do after the election, or maybe we don't have to do anything. Maybe we should just have this be. I doubt if I'm talking to the right crowd. This is a crowd that staying and watching is not something of their nature. Yeah, so let's continue looking for the rose in all our lives. By the way, the thorns. So, did you ask the question why? Maybe we spoke about this last week. Why was Moses faced with a burning bush? Why would God select a thorny bush to speak to Moses? I mean, you see, that's how the Midrash works. Everything in the Torah you need to question. So, why would God speak to Moses from a bush, a lowly bush in the middle of the desert? Why? What can be the teaching?
He needed to get his attention.
Yeah, to see if he'd notice.
Well, you can do it from the Trump Tower.
To see if he'd noticed it.
To see if he noticed it, and he actually noticed. He stopped and just turned his head. Sometimes that's the only thing required. But what else is in it? What's the bush? I mean, teaching that God is everywhere. Even in the lowliest plant. Even in the person that we have an idea that maybe there are no redeeming features with it. I can't stand this when someone tells me, there's no redeeming features with this person. What? Why would that person be here? You know, there are people who judge other people in, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds? The bush was selected because it also has thorns. You put your hand in the bush, it never comes, what?
The same.
The same. I find it extremely interesting and not really complimentary to all the Jews that surrounded Hillary during the campaign. Oh my God, where do we find that group of people? I'm talking about the one with the terrible emails.
Anthony.
No, I'm talking about her husband.
Well,
Anthony Weiner?
I know. So I'm asking. No, I know her. She's fine. She's a Muslim. She's fine. Yeah. Why would that character appears in such a, I mean, those are the thorns. We have them. We need to be able to carefully remove them. There's no. I mean, it's embarrassment. I mean, when we open, Jews as minority, when we open a newspaper and see someone is there and is Jewish, we always check to see what's the last name. We always. I mean, it's an illness of minorities. When Reagan was shot, I know what was the thought that crossed everyone's mind. I hope it's not a Jew. That's what happens when you live your life with a trauma of minority for so many generations. You worry about this. By the way, it's not only Jews. Other minorities have the same kind of fear from those events. But those are the thorns, and sometimes the thorns come sometimes around the rose. The question is to distinguish between the rose and the thorns. Because you need to deal with every object differently. Okay, look at 29. Please. Come on.
I will.
Yes, please.
The Lord came unto Sinai after having first risen at Seir unto the people thereof, then having shined forth at Mount Paran.
Okay, so This is the Song of the Sea. When they cross the sea, there is a beautiful poetry there, ancient archaic poetry. According to the tradition, Miriam and the women are singing this song. Anyway, that's a verse from there. Go on.
He came unto the myriads holy, at his right hand a fiery law for them.
Okay, that's the end of the story. Go on.
When he who is everywhere revealed himself to give the Torah to Israel, he revealed himself not only to Israel, but to all the other nations as well.
Oh, so everyone got a chance. Why is it important for this paragraph to be here?
It explains whether it's a chosen
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, it explains why the Jews got it. God, can you choose someone else for a while? Yeah. Fiddler on the Roof, you know. May he keep the czar away from us. The same idea. Okay, so continue. So everyone got a chance to accept the Torah. But he went, and now you'll see how this works.
At first God went to the children of Esau. He asked them, will you accept the Torah? They said right to his face, what is written in it? He said, thou shalt not murder. They replied, Master of the universe, that goes against our grain. Our father, whose hands are the hands of Esau.
A quotation from Genesis. Remember when Esau and Jacob are planning to get the blessing from Isaac. So it says the hands are the hands of Esau. So we cannot take the Torah. Why? Because we live on what? Murdering and killing. That's what we do. So we're not going to take it. By the way, what do I do? What is the purpose of writing this? What do we know about the descendants of Esau in the time when this is written? Again, the Bible, both Old Testament, New Testament, it's a political document. So what am I doing? I'm denigrating, by putting this, I'm denigrating those people who are trying to kill us by putting this kind of a sentence. By the way, after a while, those kind of things in our tradition, if we don't pay attention why they're there, after a while, they become this amazing brainwash. You cannot imagine the resistance that we got, that I got, at the beginning of the tri-faith. Actually, you can imagine because you guys went through some difficult time too. But mine came, the resistance came from, first of all, the Middle East and the story of the Middle East and the history of the land of Israel with the Middle East. And also from the Bible. How can you do this, Rabbi? You know? Well, I mean, sometimes you need to look at the text and push it aside and be able to introduce a different reality. I think there is a challenge of, like monkeys, copying everything there without even using some of the, and I didn't call them monkeys, but I was rough with some of them. I'm sorry, I don't have patience. Oh, you notice this? But I think from time to time, we need to really look carefully at the text, because no text should be a holy cow. And no text can be still applicable, every word, every letter of the text to what's happening now. And I think from time to time it requires great gatekeepers, and I think this church has amazing gatekeepers. I'm calling the clergy and the leadership. And so those gatekeepers have to find a way to figure out how to move this or another issue through the gate. So 30 years ago or 40 years ago, you will never hear about interfaith marriage in Judaism. And if you heard about those, or you knew a couple that married in interfaith marriage, it was not well known. No one talked about this the way we talk about interfaith. But, we send our kids to colleges. What do we expect? That they'll come back with only Jewish spouses? So then, you have people who spend hours and hours in figuring out outreach for the interfaith couples. The same is true about gay, lesbian. All of our movements went through some serious conversations about those individuals that we wanted to embrace. If we stayed with Leviticus all the time, quoting like every evangelical Christian on the radio, oh my God, there's a verse in Leviticus. So what? So what? I said this before, there are about 4,000 verses in the Bible of how to behave toward people. Only 2 about gay. 4,000 verses 2. Come on. So, I think this is why this coalition with the mosque and the church is working. Because we are at the same kind of a way of understanding what should be the relationship to the scriptures. We couldn't do it with other groups. At the end, that's what God wanted us to do. Okay, so then he left the children of Esau. Continue. Then he goes to who? Ammon. That's the next paragraph.
Okay. Then he went to the children of Ammon and Moab.
This is the area of Jordan. Okay?
And
that's a geographical place. Go on.
And asked them, will you accept the Torah? They said right to his face.
Don't you like this? Right to the face. Look how vivid it is. Go on.
He said, thou shalt not commit adultery. They replied, Master of the universe, our very origin is in adultery. For Scripture says, thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. We cannot accept the Torah.
You remember the Lot? Yeah. Okay. So there was already a need then to identify the nation of Moab as someone that is not living by sexual code. Go on.
Then he went to the children of Ishmael. He asked them, will you accept the Torah? They said right to his face, what is written in it? He said, thou shalt not steal. They replied, Master of the universe, it is our very nature to live off only what is stolen and what is got by assault. Of course, of our forebear Ishmael, it is written.
And now comes the proof text.
And
you see, nothing is appearing on the text without having a verse that will justify the response. Brilliant way of having the dialogue in the text. Go on.
And he shall be a wild ass of a man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him.
This is when Ishmael is sent with Hagar to the desert. So God says to Abraham, don't worry, I'll bless him, but you need to know about what he's going to make a living from. Okay, continue.
There was not a single nation among the nations to whom God did not go, speak, and as it were, knock on its door, asking whether it would be willing to accept the Torah.
How do you like God's job? Knocking on the door of every nation. Please take this. Then, of course, here's the end.
At long last he came to Israel. They said, we will do and hearken.
Wow. So this is the verse that is very challenging. So the Israelites, when God comes to the Israelites, they say, we will what? We will do and then we'll listen. Wow. They were willing to do it without even hearing the details. I think if you give them the details, they'll have regrets about what they did. But they were willing to accept the Torah even without arguing with God about what's written there. Continue.
Of God's successive attempts to give the Torah, it is written, the Lord came unto Sinai, after having first risen at Seir unto the people thereof, then having shined forth at Mount Paran, he finally came unto the myriads holy. at his right hand a fiery law for them.
Well, so this explains the verse that we did not understand from Deuteronomy about why is God going to all those places. Why does God has to travel from Seir to the north, to the south, to all those people? Now you know the answer. The answer is he went to sell the Torah, and none of them took it. None of them. Until the Israelites said, we will do it, whatever it's written there, we will do it, and then we'll listen. That shows what? Shows what? On the part of the Israelites. Trust. By the way, you will see in a second that trust was also had a little bit of a violence effect. Yes?
So if he was God, didn't he know that all these other people were going to refuse?
Yeah, but that kills the story. I mean, I think it's wonderful when you create those kind of midrashic material, because then it reflects on each of the nations why they didn't accept it. But God is still trying. God is, he has to sell his merchandise by the end of the day. Yeah, of course. Good point.
So what happened to the other tribes?
Which tribe?
The ones that didn't accept the Torah?
Well, they are living among us. Ishmael is the father of who? Muslims. Yeah, I mean, so you have all those people, by the way, which is interesting because when you speak to a Muslim theologian, they accept the Torah, they accept the New Testament. I mean, so in a way, at the end, everyone accepted it. They added their own chapter, but they still has we still have a common dancing ground that we can dance. We just need to pay attention to this. Now comes, 31. Who would like to read 31? It's a small one.
Whence did Sinai come? Rabbi Yossi taught out of Mount Moriah.
Okay, so there is a legend, a Midrash, of all the mountains wanting the Torah to be given on their top. Similar to all the letters of the alphabet arguing with God about what will be the first letter to start by the Torah. So there's all those discussions because of the honor. Everyone wanted their mountain to be the one. So where is Sinai coming from? Now you're going to hear.
The place where our father Isaac had been bound as a sacrifice. Sinai plucked itself as the priest's portion is plucked out of the dough. For the Holy One said, since their father Isaac was bound upon this mount, it is fitting that his children receive the Torah upon it.
I love how there always discussion by archaeological groups. So where is the real Mount Sinai? Where is the Ark of Noah? Who cares? They spend millions on those expeditions. Did they come up with any results?
Makes good television.
Good television show, totally. So now you know what Mount Sinai is made out of. Mount Sinai is made out of a piece of the Mount Moriah where Abraham took his son for the binding of Isaac. Why is it important to make the connection between those two mountains?
Well, it's reciprocal.
Abraham was giving up the most important thing of his son.
And now I'm giving you the most important thing of your Torah. Beautiful. Also, what happens when you have too many mountains that claim that on their mountain the Torah was given? Well, you open a gift shop in every one of them and they argue forever what mountain was the one. So you don't really know. So many people, Mount Sinai, we assume it's in Sinai, but who knows? I mean, when we spend more time finding out what mountain geographically, that means that we spend less time learning the Torah. when we spend too much time in those fantasies. And I know they make great TV shows or great movies. You know, the Ten Commandments. Wow, what a movie.
Can I
yeah,
back up? I'm
please.
still puzzling over, to me, the Midrashic tradition teaches us how to question and examine and ponder and consider. So I'm having trouble, I get the trust that Israel showed God by saying we don't need to see the details of the contract, but
Okay.
that seems so contrary to me.
Totally. So that's why there's another Midrash.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually 32. Can you read, please? 32.
32.
And
And
they-
they stood under the mount.
Okay. So in the book of Exodus, it says they stood under the mountain. What is the problem with the verse? They stood under the mountain. Well, you can translate under as close by or under. And now we'll find out the answer for the question.
Okay. Rabbi Avdimi Bar Hama said, the verse implies that the Holy One overturned the mountain upon them like an inverted cask and said to them, if you accept the Torah, it is well. If not, your grave will be right here.
Yeah. Which is fantastic. Because the rabbis are really questioning the answer, we will do and we will hear. That's exactly what you raised.
Okay.
So try to imagine yourself sitting in the 1st or 2nd century with the rabbis. You'll be in a corner.
You're right.
But this idea that even some of the rabbis who are sitting and discussing how God went to try to sell the Torah to other nations, even they understood that there's a little bit of a problem of accepting a contract without reading it. So they created a Midrash here, and maybe that's what happened. Yeah.
I think, I don't understand what the Midrash is. It's confusing me. I think I'm taking it too literally. Does it compare to the Christian commentaries that we have, where it's somebody's opinion?
This is a way of commentary. Midrash is commentary, for sure. But Midrash is commentary, but it has to be dressed with proof text. So it's not just doing commentary and coming from right field without having some kind of a grounding in a text. So the Midrash is allowed when, here for example, there was a verse in Exodus 9 where it says, and they stood under the mountain. What is the meaning of this? Maybe something else happened at that moment. Maybe God actually picked up the mountain and said, you know what, I'm tired of going to all those nations. No one wants it. If you guys don't take it, I'm dropping the mountain on you. You know what? Some of us who are struggling with the 613 commandments, and we struggle every day, including the Orthodox person who struggled with this, why did we get this yoke? Is it a yoke? Or is it a burden? Or is it a gift? And so they give you, what you have here are rabbis who are trying to answer the questions. But they are doing it very carefully. You will not find this opinion many more times. You will find the selling of the Torah to other nations first more times than the one about lifting the mountain over them. So talk to me a little bit more about the confusion. There's a,
I think when I'm reading this, I'm reading the actual
the actual Bible?
yeah.
No, you
I'm
don't.
not.
No, you're not.
But I'm getting it all, I'm having a hard time keeping on that.
Okay, so just imagine this as pieces of a puzzle. I mean, so you have the puzzle of what happened on Mount Sinai. And you have different rabbis offering different pieces to assemble the puzzle. The fact that the puzzle is not perfect That's your problem.
I know.
No. For them, they provided some explanation to those events. So in a way, it's a commentary, but it's a very carefully designed commentary that wants to. Commentary is also a political statement.
I know all that, I'm just.
I'm sorry.
Okay, say in Christian you might have the Barclay's commentary, you might have all of these. In this, is there one Midrash that is accepted pretty much by most Jews, or are there
No.
a lot of different ones?
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
That's why there was only one Moses. If you had more than one, it would be chaos.
So I could go to a library in your church and I could find volumes.
Yeah, you'll find the best place to go for text material is the JCC library on 132nd. There's a beautiful room there and lots of volumes, and the librarian there is very helpful. So I mean that's a better place.
So why did you choose this specific Midrash on this? Why not another Midrash on?
Well, I gave you a lot of midrash. All the numbers are. So all of the midrashim here are about revelation, about the Torah.
Right.
So I gave you.
Why did you choose these specific ones when there are other ones out there about these other, about this?
If I chose them, you'll ask the same question. I'm giving you a different taste of different midrashic material. If there are more on everything. There's more. I tried to.
That's kind of I was trying to figure that out myself, and so.
I'm more interested for giving you the ABC of how to do it on your own. I'm trying to create this foundation for you to be able then to move on your own to study more of what's going on.
So I think there's a misunderstanding that this is the only Midrash on Revelation. This piece of paper right here is the only thing. But
No,
there
it's
are
just the
thousands
Xerox
of
says
them
thank
out
you.
there.
Maybe
There
I
are
wasn't.
thousands of them out there that you can go to.
This is how much a Xerox machine upstairs works.
So there's more out there that just from.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I'm giving you. I'm giving you actually two different, very different midrashim. One is about God going and trying to sell it, and the Israelites accepting it without questioning. And the other one is, here will be your death if you don't take it. I mean, so that's the gamut of how we treat this kind of text.
Just like there's millions of commentaries out there for the Christians. There are millions of these out here. These are just itsy bitsy pieces of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good way of looking at this.
It's like a commentary.
Yes.
And there's lots out there.
Okay now, I just.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
got
like
it.
the Apocrypha? Is it like the Christian writings
The
that
Christian
fell in
what?
the Apocrypha?
Well, we have books in the Apocrypha too. I mean, so every religion pushed some books to the Apocrypha because they didn't make sense at that time to the political line that they wanted to teach.
Right.
So
They write more like.
I have them upstairs. I have 3 huge volumes done again by the University of Nebraska of all the Apocrypha. So I have in my 3, I mean those are volumes that it takes 3 people to carry. So I have there all the books that were taken out of the canon, of both the Jewish canon of the Bible and the Christian canon, because they did not fit the orientation, the political line, the times of what the gatekeepers wanted to preserve.
So when you get together and study with other rabbis, basically you're doing Midrash, right?
I do Midrash, but I study also modern day commentary on the Torah.
But you yourselves talking together could be like a commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's happening now and some of the questions that I have been asked is the beginning of creating commentary here in this room.
Well,
You guys don't look like rabbis, but it's fine.
But if a preacher gives a sermon on a text
Yeah.
of the gospel, and this church has this sermon, this church has this sermon.
That's
like-
commentary.
Yeah, that's like Midrash.
Yeah, it is like Midrash, but better for that minister to have at his or her disposal all the proof texts that are justifying the presentation. So that's how we were trained to be rabbis. You can't just go there and preach on Sunday morning, or in our case, Friday night or Saturday, without having some textual proof that your line of thinking or your theology corresponds to the text. That's why it takes time to write sermons. Because you can't just because something happened politically doesn't mean I need to talk about it. What I'm saying is that it takes time. For example, all of the Torah portions in the Bible are divided through the weeks. So every week, we just finished to read Lech Lecha, which was perfect to read after the election. Lech Lecha is where Abraham is told, get out of your home, of your house, and go to the place that I will show you. What a perfect Torah portion after elections. I mean, you're going to continue lamenting? You have to do something. So then, depends what you want to do with that topic on the weekend. This week, we have another Torah portion after Lech Lecha. So we are trained to look every week at what Torah portion. It's a one-year calendar. And every week, you have to defend and find what is exciting, meaningful. Why do you take this Torah portion? Why do I need to read the Torah portion every year, the same Torah portion? So I can read the portion about Abraham leaving his home. I can read it this year. And this year, I will reflect on one aspect. Next year, it can be completely different kind of topics. But again, the proof text. But this is what your ministers do too. They go to the New Testament and pluck out a verse. And there's also an order of what you read in what times. And so that's how we do. Yeah, I can see people shaking their heads. So I just wanted to give you a taste of this. I mean, it's just to teach you some tools, and then on your own to continue studying and learning. Now, I'll be available anytime you have a question. As long as they keep me here in this church, I will be definitely available to show you the material, to show you. Everything is in English translation now. I already told you what it is to read in English translation. But still, it's a good way to cover some of this material.
I just think you get so focused on this, you think you're reading scripture. And
Beautiful.
it is.
But do you know why you think you're reading scripture? Because the proof text. I mean, every paragraph here has a proof text that brings you back to the original text. So those verses in the Bible are like wings. They allow you to fly to other places.
I'm getting it.
It's okay. Thank you for opening that door. Maybe I'm sure I wasn't clear enough when I explained this. But it happens while the study goes on. Okay, so 35. Who would like to read 35? At the bottom of the page.
I am the Lord thy God, because the Holy One appeared to them at the Red Sea as a mighty man waging war at Sinai, as a pedagogue teaching Torah, in the days of Solomon as a young man, and in the days of Daniel as an aged man full of mercy. The Holy One said, because you see me and many guises, do not imagine that there are many gods. For I am he who was with you at the Red Sea. I am he who was with you at Sinai. I am the same everywhere. I am the Lord thy God.
So this is the first line of the Ten Commandments. Tell me why this teaching is so powerful. You mean you're reading other things than what I'm asking? Oh my God. What a great student. Tell me.
This is to me the bedrock, because it says, when the Holy One gave the Torah, no bird chirped, no fowl flew, no ox lowed, not one of the Ophanim stirred a wing, not one of the seraphim said, holy, holy, holy. The sea did not roar, creatures did not speak, the whole world was hushed into breathless silence. It was then that the voice went forth, I am the Lord.
Yeah. So they beautiful. So they took this verse, I am the Lord your God, and are trying to unpack it.
Right.
So it tells you that sometimes, we are wondering why we don't see God at this moment in our life. You know this beautiful poem about a man walking on the shore, and he's asking God to reveal the man's life. And suddenly scenes from the man's life are opened in the sky, and the man noticed that in the most difficult time of his life, there is only one footprint on the sand, and he is angry at God. Where were you? Well, I'm the one that carried you. So what I'm saying is that here is a way of us understanding that God appears to us in different guises because of the need that we have. And sometimes if we don't experience or see God in the way we have seen God or experienced God in previous moments in our life, that's okay. God tells you here that what a wonderful comforting thing to say to the people who are studying now. That I appear, I'm the same God, I'm every place, but sometimes I appear in different guises. Which, by the way, there is I mentioned this before, a great book by John Miles, God, a biography. You should get the book. He also wrote a book about the New Testament, continuing the search of how God is evolving and changing in every book of the Bible. Fascinating. The God of Genesis is not the God of Job. And definitely not the God of Mark. It's a very good book to read. And so it's 2 volumes. One is Old Testament, one is New Testament. But this is what actually this Midrash is suggesting here. Okay. Now, of course, so some of the Midrashim repeat with the same topic, so I didn't read every one of them. But look again at 38. Number 38. And the numbers are there just to make it easy for you to find it. 38. Those numbers don't appear in any place. They're just here to help us. Please, who would like?
Rabbi Joseph that Levi said, with each and every word that issued from the mouth of the Holy One, the entire world, all of it, was filled with the fragrance of spices.
So every time another word during the 10 Commandments was said, what happened to the aroma next to Mount Sinai? Yeah, beautiful aroma. Go on.
But if the first word filled the world, where did the fragrance of the second word go?
Wow. It's an interesting question. I know you guys don't occupy yourself with asking this. But what happened if one word fills the whole world with this aroma? What happened to the second word? There's no space for what? For the aroma to spread all over the place. So continue.
Out of his treasuries the Holy One brought forth a wind, which carried each fragrance along in orderly succession.
Look at the beautiful, gentle way of talking about the words of the 10 Commandments in a very pleasing manner. Continue.
Rabbi Joshua and Levi said also, and each and every word that issued from the mouth of departed, as he said. My soul departed when he spoke.
Okay, so in a book, here comes a proof text. I read this verse hundreds of times. I never understood what I just learned. That on Mount Sinai, when God started speaking, what happened to the people? They all died. Their soul disappeared. This awesome encounter with God, they never knew who God is. Don't worry, they'll be revived. They'll be revived. But at that moment, just trying to explain what happens there. This, for the first time, they are hearing God's word. All 600,000 that left, in addition to the women and the children, they are hearing God's voice. That's why it has to be such a silence around. That's why they need to be present when they hear it. And so what happened? In the book of Song of Songs, there is a verse that says, my soul departed when he spoke. Perfect. Look at this proof text. Perfect proof text. Perfect. If you connect the Song of Songs to the giving of the Torah. Go on.
But if their souls departed at the first word, how could they receive the next word? He brought down the dew, with which he will in time resurrect the dead, and restored life to Israel.
Well, now you got a secret how we're going to be resurrected. There'll be a very wet morning. Now, they're not interested now in suddenly leaving the topic and talking about resurrection. They'll do it in a different place. But they continue about this moment of losing your life for hearing the words of the Torah. Continue.
Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said further, at each and every word that issued from the mouth of the Holy One, the Israelites recoiled a distance of 12 mil, and the angels moved from back to Sinai, as is said. Hosts of angels flee, they flee.
From Psalms, go on.
Read not Yedodim, they flee, but Yedadim, they move.
They moved. So what happened every time the Israelites heard a word of God? What happened to them?
They changed.
They ran away. I mean, so here's another teaching that maybe there wasn't such acceptance. You already heard about the mountain over their head. I mean, the difficulty of accepting this. I mean, people in their days are asking the questions, maybe it's too much. Maybe I can't keep the 613 commandments. Maybe I want to stray away. I don't want to be an observant Jew. So the rabbis came there to try to do what? What really gatekeepers need to do with their flock? What is the role of the gatekeeper?
Give them hope.
Give them hope. Keep the flock where? Here, yeah, heard them. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what they're doing here. They are trying to provide answers that will be satisfying, pleasant. That's why the aroma, it's the words of God are sweet, So that's what they are trying to do here. So this is, for example, one. And then look at 43 now. A short one, please.
Rabbi Yohanan said also, each and every word that issued from the Holy One was transmuted into 70 languages. Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said, and when a man strikes an anvil and causes sparks to fly off in all directions, Rabbi Yossi ben Hanina said, and when a man strikes a rock with a hammer and causes chips to fly off in all directions, so too did the great company of those that published it.
Wow. So what is the Torah? You see the image of the Torah?
Spark.
Like what? Sparks.
Chips.
What?
Chips.
Chips and sparks. Different ways of dealing with this. And those sparks are falling where? In the hearts of people. And that's how they are everywhere. That's how people are ignited. That's why people come up with dreams and visions. So that's the role of the Torah. The Torah is, I think for all of us, this machine that produces sparks that makes our life more meaningful and more painful. Oh, did I forget to mention the pain? No, but that's why the mountain needs to be maybe raised above our heads. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to have a religious discipline. For sure we know it from our neighbors. What really eats at the foundation of religion is the secularism that is so prevailing around us. Okay, the golden calf. So there was a question before about the first question that was asked, and I didn't answer in full. What was the question that I was asked in the beginning of the... there was a question that I was asked in the beginning.
I don't know whether you...
Oh, Pharaoh, yeah. I mean, this material doesn't cover Pharaoh. But if I'm God and I want to show my might, it's 15 rounds boxing in the arena. So God doesn't want to have any competition. God is God. Look how what kind of a difficult time they had building a golden calf. The golden calf was built because that's what they were used to. It was the image, a shape of something they used to worship in Egypt. That's why they moved into that. That's one of the answers. So Pharaoh has to be punished. Pharaoh had a chance not to harden his heart. Why didn't he say to the Israelites, okay, you guys want to go for 3 days picnic? That's what they asked him. Can we go 3 days? I mean, they were lying to him. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. Can we get a break for 3 days from this hard work? We're going to celebrate out there in the desert. Pharaoh is Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a Pharaoh that exists in every generation. Sometimes the cry from the earth needs to remind God. I mean, a good question to ask is, how come they waited 430 years to get out of there? Because they really got used to their lives, and they didn't want to change their lives. And then, chapter 3 in Exodus, suddenly they yell to God, we can't take it anymore. And it says there, God remembers. Excuse me? God remembers? God didn't know where they are? That they are stuck? Well, sometimes we are stuck. And sometimes we need to get some help. And sometimes Pharaoh needs to realize what kind of a dictator he is. So it's a work between God and Pharaoh. Pharaoh had a chance to say, I'm done with those edicts. He did not. And God just wanted to take revenge. That's one of the many answers to what exactly happened there. Here is the story about Satan. I love to go to Satan back and back. First of all, because I did the work on Satan. So, but the golden calf, you are not going to put the burden of the building of the golden calf on the people. No, they are too righteous. So here is how this works. Look at number 57. Actually, in the middle of 57, there is, some say that Satan came. Who would like to read this? You say it? Please read. Yeah, please.
Some say that Satan came and brought confusion to the minds of the people. Satan began by asking, where is Moses, your teacher?
Yeah, Moses is in the top of the mountain. Already 40 days and 40 nights went by, So, who is Satan here? Satan is everyone that is at the bottom of the mountain that has this nagging kind of a question. Where is he? Maybe he left us. What are we going to do? How we get out of this desert? Why did we come here to the desert to die here? Let's go back to the cucumbers in Egypt. I mean, that's what they say. Go on.
He went up on high, but the 6th hour of the day is here. The people paid no attention to him. He is dead, Satan said. They still paid no attention to him. Finally, he showed them a likeness of Moses' mirror suspended in the air between heaven and earth. Then the people pointed with their fingers, saying, "This is indeed Moses, a mere man." Exodus 32. Hur stood up and rebuked them. "You stiff-necked people, do you not remember how many miracles he performed on your behalf?" But the people rose up and slew him. Then they gathered against Aaron and said, "If you make a god for us, well and good. But if not, we will do to you what we did to Hur." When Aaron saw how things stood, he was afraid and attempted to distract them with subterfuges. Thus he said, "Break off the golden rings, which are in the ears of your wives." A difficult request to execute, since the wives were likely lost.
So he was thinking that none of the wives will depart from the earring, gold earring, so fast. And this can win him some time, and maybe Moses will come by then. Go on.
Indeed, when the men went to their wives, they did balk, but for a different reason. They defied them, saying, "God forbid that we should make an idol and betray the Holy One, who wrought such miracles and mighty deeds in our behalf."
Wow.
Yay, women.
The first revolution. Are you out of your mind, you men? Look at what happened to us. So it's not because we like to keep the golden earring. It's because of their belief in the Torah. By the way, if you look at Jewish education, if it wasn't for the women that in different years, many years ago, stayed at home and were in charge, they were responsible for the education of their children. And so the women play a very interesting role in the upbringing of children until today. They spend a lot more time with the kids. And so the women got here a wonderful compliment. Go on.
So, since the wives refused, all the men among the people broke off the golden rings which were in their ears.
So the men also had
Their own ears.
their own earrings. Yeah, go on.
When the men brought the golden rings, so said Rabbi Jeremiah, Aaron raised his eyes toward heaven and said, "Unto thee I lift up my eyes, O thou that art enthroned in the heavens." From Psalms. "You know all thoughts. It is against my will that I'm about to do this." But as he threw the gold rings into the fire, the magicians came and master of the universe. Where did they go?
No, there was a mistake in putting the page in the right place.
Oh,
So go to
Go
84.
to
Skip.
84.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So the magicians came and worked their secret arts. Some say it was Micah, the one who nearly crushed to death in a building where he had been immured in lieu of bricks, and who was saved by Moses. It was this Micah who took a tablet upon which was written, "Rise up, O bullock," and threw it into the pit among the golden rings. Then a bull calf emerged, lowing as it leaped about, whereupon the people said, "This is thy God, O Israel." Exodus. And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. The people wanted to build it with him, but he said, "Allow me to build it by myself. It is not in keeping with the respect due to the altar that others build it with me."
Yeah, I'm the priest, so it's my job to build it. Go on.
Aaron's intent: "In the time it will take me to build the altar by myself, I hope Moses will come down." But after he finished building it, Moses still had not come down, so he announced, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord," saying to himself, "Let the happening be deferred until tomorrow." At that moment, the ministering angels began to lament. They forgot God, their Savior, who had done great things in Egypt.
From Psalms. Go on.
And the Holy Spirit moaned, they soon forgot his works. Also from Psalms.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we read the book of Psalms and we don't understand always the connections. Look how beautiful they are working in putting those verses in Psalms in the mouth of Aaron or in the mouth of the people. Make the Torah alive. Remember now, that we are talking about a time that there were no, there was a very limited amount of Torah scrolls. Because, I mean, even today, it takes about 2 years to write a Torah scroll by a scribe. Because it's a very hard work. You need to make sure you copy it correctly, and you have calligraphy, and you have rituals that the scribe needs to observe every day of the scribe's writing. And by the way, you can identify who wrote the Torah by just looking at the calligraphy. It's amazing. Similar to looking at a work of art. Every calligrapher has a different Torah. Anyway, so this is a way of, in those days, to be able to teach Torah without having scripture in front of them. Because they memorize everything. So in the yeshiva, that's why the proof text is so crucial here. Because I cannot give you a proof text that doesn't exist. They all knew this, they all checked each other's words, they all were in a room like this, knowing everything very well, and they checked everyone's words. And this was a way to, every time there's a verse, this was another way of teaching the Bible. So that's why, for example, Monday and Thursday were so important, because those were market days, and most of the people gather at the gates of the city to be able to bring cases to the judges of the Sanhedrin or to Moses in the biblical time. And so this was a place where they learned Torah and they studied Torah. So let me try to conclude. I'm aware of the clock. What a great place to put the clock. So there are some difficulties, of course, of why the Israelites received the Torah. What is the connection between the people that left Egypt, why they deserve to receive the Torah, what was the purpose of giving the Torah to the world? So some of those, when you wake up and you ask those questions and you don't have, for example, anyone to explain to you, Midrashic material becomes extremely valuable to start and to continue a conversation that can fill the gap. That's what the Midrash does. The Midrash fills gaps that people have, not only with their knowledge, but also with questions they have. And so if you have a proof text at the paragraph that you are studying, that proof text will help. You'll need to unpack that, expand it, and maybe to bring another verse from a different place. Remember, no early or late in the Bible, especially in the 5 books of Moses. We don't know if the order of the books of Moses is the same order that they were written. So they can just move. I mean, they are artists. They are modern day artists. Being able to remove verses from one context, put it in another place in order to prove something else they want to teach. That's how it works. It's this amazing acrobatic knowledge of verses and how to use the verses in order to further the teaching of a chapter in the Bible, or a verse in the Bible, or even a word in the Bible, even a letter in the Bible. They will use the Bible to explain the Bible. Yes?
Can I ask a question? That troubles me, because I think, for me, fundamentalist Christianity has done that by never considering context of the words from Scripture and drawing them together in ways. I mean, we lay Jesus on everything in the Old Testament, and that has a certain value, but it often, I think, is subterfuge to the richness of that original text, and so I'm having trouble getting my head around what makes that rich and wonderful and meaningful, and what screws it up.
Well, I mean, this is similar to the question. When I came to this town, there were a few Jewish families that had Hanukkah bushes. Yeah. And I loved when I was invited to those houses for Hanukkah. Okay, so keep your mouth shut. Just be there. Eat the latkes and just say something about the tree from plastic, whatever. I think that there is a measure of propriety that needs to be exercised here. I think if your guy came second. Yeah, okay. So, no. So what I'm saying is, I think if it's forced on the text, if you see in every verse in the Old Testament the sign for Jesus, I think if this corresponds to your belief and corresponds to the New Testament text, I mean, some people take it too much. I mean, everything, as you said, suddenly is connected. I think it's okay to see the footsteps of Jesus in the Old Testament. I don't have any difficulty as long as you leave me alone to see what I see in my text. What I'm saying is that if the advancement of Christianity or liberal Christianity can be helped by the text of the Bible, actually it's a victory to all of us. Because you will have, I don't think you can study New Testament completely away from the Old Testament.
And that's not my only example. I need to think of better examples.
No.
I think we do that with Leviticus, for example. And I don't know. I just think there is value in the chronological and
By the way,
historical.
But I'm only giving you a period of maybe 200 years of doing it. But at 11th and 12th century, a serious commentary continued. I mean, even today, I don't know if you remember Rabbi Kripke, may his memory be a blessing.
Yes.
But Rabbi Kripke, every week in the Jewish press, there was a Torah portion commentary by Rabbi Kripke. So the commentary continues. But one needs to ask himself or herself, what do you want to achieve? Is it for the sake of learning or the sake of, for what?
Yeah.
Why are we doing it? And so sometimes,
Powerful.
yeah, what is the motivation of making the connection? What is the motivation? I don't have any difficulty of Christians understanding Isaiah in a way that I don't understand Isaiah. Actually, there are 3 Isaiahs now. It's clear that the book is actually 3 books from new discoveries and new commentary. As long as you can take the words of Isaiah and make them words that really correspond and glue correctly to your belief, I am okay with this. What I'm not okay is to say to me, this is the only way you can translate Isaiah. I think this is why I was invited here, to open a door to a Jewish understanding of some of the text in the Old Testament. But you have it with everything. How many books were written about Vietnam, what really happened in Vietnam? Which one are you going to take? Which one are you going to follow? What really happened there? What I'm saying is that as long as we have creative minds, get used to this kind of things happening, hopefully one picks up the shepherd very carefully before they join the sheep.
Why did Torah say no murder, no stealing, and then have the Holy Land be a place where people of Israel went in and murdered everybody?
I'm still asking that question. Why? Because they couldn't afford having other gods there. They were so frail in observance that they were told that that's what they need to do. But maybe it has nothing to do with this, and those are the traditions of those days. I mean, the Middle East has been, they didn't wait to start a war in their land. They always went to that piece of land, that unbelievable bridge between the continents, and that's where they waged the war. I think the book of Joshua is describing a situation that took place. They still are told not to destroy fruit-bearing trees. I still see the humanity in some of the rules, but there was a different kind of war that they needed to wage. And I think God already had the experience of the desert. He knew if I leave all those nations there, they will be affected. They'll be copying the gods of those nations. Yeah, it's a cruel book. It's mine. No. What I'm saying is I need to answer those questions too. Of course we're asking. I have it there. I can't suddenly decide, I don't like this book in the Old Testament, get it out of the canon. Who am I to make that kind of decision? The books are there because they have to go to the promised land and they have to conquer it, and there's a connection. Why is Abraham arguing with the Hittite for 300 shekels to buy the grave of Sarah? Why so many verses are spent on that argument? Why? Because it was important already in the book of Genesis to put the foundation for the relationship between the Israelites and the promised land. So the covenant of the Jews is also a covenant with the land. It's God, people, and land. That's the triangle of Jewish belief. Someone apologize? Any other questions? I have a few more minutes. Ask anything else at the end of this. Next week, we're going to start with redemption. You'll hear about Jewish views of Messiah and Messianic time. Come ready. It'll be some different ideas, which is okay, I hope. Yeah. Keep pushing me. It's fine. Push me. Yes?
Was there a Jewish religion before Abraham? And if they had an organized religion, what did it look like?
First of all, I don't really believe that Abraham existed. Sorry. To shock you. I think the Bible we have now is a Bible that is written years and years after events took place. And some of the stuff that is written there is there. And I, as a Jew that follows tradition, every morning say, the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Do I know exactly what they did or what exactly happened day in, day out in their diary? No, I don't know.
But where did it start? Where did they get the idea of one people and one God, the covenant?
They got it from the Egyptians. So definitely it's clear now that already in Egypt, there was the beginning of the creation of the understanding of one God. Some of the Egyptian priests were so well advanced, and that's why Moses has to be in Egypt for a while. By the way, Freud has a wonderful book about Moses and explaining the monotheism from the Egyptian point of view. So things are brilliantly put together. Do I know why and how they were put together? I know there was a committee, a lot of oral tradition, and one day they decided that it's time to start living really legacy that is not just oral. And there were some stories and some legends around the fireplace, eating their meat and fighting their animals, and those stories slowly got reshaped in a manner that became a lesson for all of us.
I have a question about something you said earlier when you said the God of the Old Testament. The God of the Old Testament is not the same as the God of the New Testament.
Or the God of 2016 in Omaha, Nebraska.
But God is God to me.
Yeah, okay.
And the God of the, different personalities, I don't know, or the way in which he was interpreted at that time
Yeah.
by the people. He's not a different God.
No, it's the same God.
People interpreted him.
Oh, God, I hope you didn't understand. Oh, my God. No,
When you said that,
every
I was
book-
like, what?
yeah, but every book, if you look at a book, if you look at the development of God, if you look at God as a biography, if you look at the Bible as a biography, you'll see that God, that so many things attribute to him or to God in Genesis, suddenly by the time you get to Job, it's a different kind of a God that never talked about reward and punishment. And how come evil people succeed? That's not the God of Genesis. God of Genesis doesn't care about theological discussions with the parishioners. But the God of Job, yes.
So is it God that's changing, or is it the people that are changing?
Oh, I'm leaving it open for a whole week for you guys to talk about it. You ever thought about God changing too? Just because you use God is the same God, okay, but God grows up. God before the Holocaust is different for me than the God after the Holocaust.
God is changing because man is changing. Man is changing because God is changing.
Beautiful. If this works for you as a core theology,
If that works for me.
no, I'm sure there are 50 other ideas here in this room.
Well,
So-
what we're dealing today in 2016,
Yeah.
what we're dealing with today is so much the same, but also totally different from what people in the 1600s or way back before
So,
Christ
yeah.
were dealing with. So that we're dealing with different types of things, but we're also dealing with the same things.
I agree. But for example, in our prayer book, the new prayer book, we have God of test tube babies. God of test tube babies will not be something that Moses. That's why all those prophets should not come back to life. They will die once they join and learn who we are and what we are all about. Anyway, thank you very much. Sorry for leaving.